Hey everyone, welcome back to another interview with the Florida Writers Association in our fabulous book expo. It's going really well. My name is Rick Betancourt and I'm president of the Florida Writers Association, and I am happy to have with me today Wendy Samford. Wendy Samford is a Ph.D. and she writes as Winifred Grace, and she was and is a prior administrator of 13 years, an author and a contributor to 8 books. She's currently working on a follow-up to Bloom Where Planted, and it's called The First Wrinkle, and that's due out this year. She's happily married with 4 kids and an awesome granddaughter. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you, Rick. It's good to be here. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So how are you today?
I'm good.
Good.
And I wanted to add one thing. I write as Winifred Grace. I did it on Bloom Where Planted. I used a pseudonym just because the content of that book is, it's adult, and because of my granddaughter, I wrote about her mom, and so I used a pseudonym just because of that. She was in middle school at the time, and I figured middle school's hard enough to get through without a book coming out about your mom. So my other books I've written under my Wendy Samford. So
yeah, so you have Wendy, so Winifred Grace.
yeah, you get to make up your own name when you use a pseudonym.
Cool?
It was so fun. I really gave it a lot of thought, actually.
You be a different person.
Yes, it's fun.
That's great. Yeah, I meant to mention that. I'm glad you brought that up because I did see that in your bio. And excellent. So, tell me a little bit about your. How did you start your writing journey?
Oh, crazy, up and down, probably like everybody else's story. I'm an administrator. I spent most of my professional life in schools. I worked in the central office, district offices of schools, grant writing, and doing the business side of schools. Loved my jobs. Then it started to come out that they were going to start evaluating teachers based on standardized test scores. I just had a huge problem. I'm against standardized tests to begin with, and when I had to evaluate really wonderful teachers based on something that really wasn't in their control, I had a hard time with that. So I quit my job. This is not a good financial decision to make. Anybody who's listening to this, I have a wonderfully supportive husband, thank goodness. And I stayed home and wrote my first book. Oh, here it is. I have props.
Nice. Nice. There you go. Excellent.
Look backwards on there. And it's all about over-testing in the United States. So that was my first thing I did. Then I decided to find people that were in the outside world that were actually teaching in a different manner. So administrators, teachers, central office personnel that had a different vision of what education should be. Second book, there it is. Creating a culture of support for teacher leaders.
Excellent.
And then we moved to Florida, had the opportunity to move, and I thought, I'm going to get a job that pays money. And, I am Christian. I feel very called into this profession, and I felt very, very called to write the Bloom Where Planted book. And it's a book about my daughter-in-law. 2 awards from Florida Writers Association. It was so exciting. But it's a book about her life. She grew up in foster care and was a product of foster care her whole way through her life, and how that affected her life, and what she, how she still struggles today because of things that happened to her as a child. So I finished that book 2 years ago, and then I'm just finished the new book, The First Wrinkle.
Nice.
Which is a follow-up. That's the cover.
Great.
My brother did it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, great cover.
I know.
Yeah.
And I interviewed many people that had the same thing, that had the same circumstance, grew up in foster care, and I was honored that they chose to share their story with me, because some of them are very, they're very personal.
Very personal.
And so that book is about the first wrinkle, kind of in brain research studies that would say, when you have something that happens to you that's traumatic and it creates something in your brain, every time you go through an experience, that your first wrinkle is always your first impulse. So you can learn other things and your brain can form different pathways and patterns, but it will always start at the first wrinkle. And so that leads to that fight, flight, or freeze. I don't know if you've heard of that response when people have gone through trauma. And so that's kind of the whole outline of the book, that people have responses that sometimes they're not even aware that they're having them, just based on past experiences. So ultimately, I think I write about non-judgment of people, just that we don't know where people are coming from, where they've been in life, and, you know, what has happened to them. So we're just all on a journey, and we need to just be open-minded and kind and open-hearted to accept people how they are.
Nice, nice. And so your books are nonfiction, is that?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I'm a nonfiction girl.
Excellent, excellent. What inspired you to write We're in Bloom?
Like I said, I feel led. I felt like I wanted to get a job and wanted to be on interviews, and I wanted to go back into my career, but I knew I was supposed to write that book, and I couldn't let it go. And so on a journey that I had no idea, I didn't know very much about foster care or trauma or anything. So I just started studying, reading and studying and doing research so that I could try to understand what these people have gone through. And I just listen. I just do what I'm told by the big man. So
Awesome, awesome. What do you find the most exciting about being an author?
I don't know if I would say that it's exciting, this career for me. Probably because of the subjects that I write about. They're heavy. But I feel more honored all the time. I always feel humbled that I meet all these people, and I've met so many people in the field that are trying to help people, you know, that volunteer time and energy. And in between the First Wrinkle, I interview people about their life, and then the chapters in between, I interview people that are making a difference. So it wouldn't be so heavy about, you know, these people in foster care. In between, I interviewed first responders and case managers and foster families and people that are trying to make a difference in the system. And so I don't know if that's exciting, but I always feel humbled that these people share their stories. And
nice. What's the biggest challenge you find as an author?
It's kind of lonely. That's why I'm really glad the Florida Writers Association. I found this group when I moved here 4 years ago, and we meet at Barnes & Noble, and they're such a support group for me. I can't even say, because it's a lonely path. You know, you're at home and you don't have work colleagues, and your subject matter is you know, very personal. Not everybody writes about the same thing, so it can be a heavy load, I think. But those people in my writers group are angels, and I just really rely on them a lot for support, and they're always there. They're good people. I was glad I found that website out of the blue. I was just searching around one day, and there it was. So
no, that's great, because that's you're right about that. You know, we're just so focused on our work, and we're working alone, and it's so important to collaborate with people, even or just to commiserate sometimes on certain things. In Florida Writers and some of in other organizations are really a great resource for people. What advice would you give somebody who maybe hasn't published their book, is trying to get into all this? What advice would you give them?
Join writers associations. Well, we help each other. You know, my first 2 books were published traditionally, in a traditional manner, and Bloom Where Planted, I published indie author. I published through Amazon, and this next book, there are these hybrid companies coming out now that help you like publish yourself. So it's not as expensive, but it's you get to keep your copyright. You own your book, and that's really important to me. So I just think for support, there's so many things you have to learn. It's like learning an industry yourself, and if that's not where you come from, writing is one thing, publishing and marketing is another thing, and all of those facets that go with that. So you need support, and talk to people and see what other people have done, and then find what's in your heart and what you're comfortable with. because it's like your baby, you know. I spent a year and a half writing this First Wrinkle. It's my baby, and I'm giving it to the world. And you know, you just got to do it the right way and what you're comfortable with. So.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. So you said your first 2 books were traditionally published. Is that what you were?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
I went traditional on the first 2, and they're probably more especially the first one was used more in classes, like college, you know,
Got it.
classes.
Yeah.
So the other, then I went with April's book, with the Bloom More Planet book. I want to write a screenplay about it one day. I don't know how to do that. I have to figure it out. But it was important to me to have the rights to it, so that when I do that, I didn't want a publisher saying, "Oh no, you can't. You have to do this." I wanted the power that it's mine, and I want to do with it what I will. So
Yeah. What's your experience been like between traditional and indie publishing? Like, what's the pluses and minuses in your mind?
Well, it's money for sure. I mean, it was kind of like, for me, it was the copyright. I wanted the copyright on it. But the nice side effect of that was, I think I made 50 cents a book on my first books, and this one, I think I make $5.81 a book. It's priced at $50. So you're in control of what you price it as. You don't want to price yourself out of the market yet. You want to be able to, you know, it took me a year and a half to write it.
Sure.
And so you want to, you know, get paid for what work you put into it. So I didn't see a huge difference in the support system on marketing, but maybe that was just me too. I felt like I marketed all 3 of them myself.
Gotcha.
More support from the traditional means, like they would give you flyers. They created flyers, created pamphlets for you, which was very helpful. You don't have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
So, you know, I had to create my own website. So these are things, it's like, do you want to pay for it, or do you want to do it yourself? Everything is you weigh what you want to do and how you want to, you know, expose your book to the world, and just a lot of decisions to make, hence the support group.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. Because some people think that, you know, traditionally writing, they're going to have somebody market their books and they're going to sit back and write. And
the writing sometimes is the easier part of it, even though that's really hard too.
That's true. Yeah, you really have to balance that business side and your creative side, and find that equilibrium, or find what works for you.
Most writers are like people that are, you know, don't mind being secluded, or, you know, not introverted, but writing is completely different than those other facets that go with promoting your book. And so it's a real learning experience. I've loved it. I really have. I've learned a lot. Yeah,
nice. So let's talk a little bit about the writing process for you. What is that like? Are you do you put a lot of planning into your writing, or is it more inspirational? What's that whole process like?
Well, this last book, The First Wrinkle, that hopefully will come out in the next few months, it was just so God-led. I can't even say, because I really had an idea that I wanted to continue Bloom More Planet, but I didn't grow up in foster care. I'm like, you know, white middle-class suburbia and over here. And so I was really out of my league, and little by little people found me somehow. And it just fell into place. Interviewing people, writing a memoir for people is a difficult job, because of course people don't talk in linear ways. They go all over the place. So there's a lot of interviewing, and the editing process was very difficult for them to relive their story, and also difficult for me to try to decipher it, move chunks of information around, and then back and forth to make sure I was representing their words well. So I don't really, I guess it fell into place for me.
So when you interview them, do you like record the video, or are you just taking notes, or what's that like?
Sometimes I use a yellow legal pad, if you can believe it. If I'm sitting with them at lunch, and if I'm close enough to live by them, I just do literally write it. I find it's too loud to type on a computer when I'm with someone.
Sure.
And then I go home and edit those right away. If I talk to people on the phone, I have, a headset and I'm just typing my guts out while they're speaking. And then I go back to just, go through the notes again that way, edit it. Yes. Cool. I know people do it different ways, and I have a recorder, but I just find that, I don't know, that just works for me. I guess it doesn't make sense. Everybody does it differently, but that's for me.
Yeah. You have to honor what works for you.
Exactly.
And we've talked about that on some of the other interviews, and some people like to outline more for fiction anyway, but outline their novels versus some more discovery writers, and it's all about honoring what works for you. And
absolutely. And especially when you're working with other humans, a lot of my friends in the writers group, they write fiction books, and that's completely different. You get a vision and you got to go in and write right away, and I have to work around other people's schedules. One coming to my mind, wonderful people, they were foster parents, and I was very careful to choose everyone in the book is from a different state, because I wanted really to represent that the problems that are out there in our social services are not one state. They're in the United States. And so everyone is from a different state. One wonderful family, and they were older people. They're just so kind, and they're foster parents, and they didn't have a computer. So I would type up what they said, and I would mail it to them in regular U.S. mail, and they would edit it. We would talk again. I would type and mail it back to them. And so it was very time consuming, but I am so thankful that I took the time to represent what they said and what things that they did gave back to the world by sponsoring so many kids. So you take the time, you get some really great stories. Yeah,
it sounds it. So you interview, take your notes, you edit it on your own, I assume. You're going in, and then once you've got that sort of in a good place, then you review that with your interviewee. Is that what usually?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, right. 4 or 5 times usually, back and forth, until it's very important to me, because I'm writing their words. It's hard not to interject yourself. We interject ourselves in there, we can't help it. Yeah. And I didn't want it to be my words coming across when I'm adding words, but I wanted it to represent what they really wanted to say. So it's a heavy on the editing.
Okay. And then for writing, do you use Scrivener or Word, or what's your choice?
I tried to use that Scrivener. Someone gave me that, and I downloaded it, and I was spending so much time trying to use that program and learn the program. I was like losing sight of what I was trying to do. So I use Word. I'm a Word girl.
Word girl. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, some people with Scrivener, you either love it or hate it.
Some people love it, and I loved the way it worked, because I have to cut chunks of things out, and I am cutting and pasting all the time, and that Scrivener is, wow, that's a phenomenal program for that, but I'm not tech savvy, evidently.
I guess I don't use it. I've played around with it like you a couple times, and I think I find Word a little bit easier, at least for the writing process. I got a new program. It's called Plotter, Plottrr. I mentioned it on a couple of interviews, and not that I promote it in any way.
Yeah, but I'll check into it.
Yeah, and it's really helpful and it's pretty easy, because you can visually see scene cards and just like chunks of text that you want to have, or even keep notes and store notes and stuff like that, which what I thought Scrivener, was able to do.
That's kind of it sounds similar, but it was not an easy program to learn on your own. You would probably have to have somebody sitting with you.
Yeah. And we've had a couple of interviews with, or webinars anyway, Florida writers on Scrivener, just to try to get people educated on it. But it can be kind of a lot. So you've got your next book is The First Wrinkle. That's your next. So what's the timeline looking for that for publication?
I just signed with, and I'm trying to think of the name of the company. Exlibris, I think is what it's called. And it's a hybrid company. I just signed with them 2 days ago. But of course, I have to get it edited myself, and I'll have to, you know, do all the inserts and the little things to get it. What do they call it? Copyright editing or something like that. They have a name for it. But
yep.
So I'll have to. I'm going to say probably 2 to 3 months is my goal. I did enter it in an unpublished manuscript with the Florida Writers Association. So
okay, great.
So I'm excited to see what happens with that, but I'm really excited to get it out there. A lot of the people that are in it, and of course I use all different names. They're all anonymous, the people in it, but they keep getting in contact with me. When is it coming? I want to read it. I want to see it.
I get excited.
You only get to see their little snippet of it. They get to read the whole book, of course. So they're excited to see. So I'm hoping about 3 months to get it out there. So
nice. And is this under Winifred Grace, or is this under
Wendy? I'm gonna use my real name on this one. Yeah, Wendy Samford.
Real name on it.
It's really hard. It was difficult marketing Bloom More Planet when you're not using your own name. It's, you know, and when you want to remain anonymous, it's very difficult to get it out there because you aren't using your name. So
yeah, that has its pluses and minuses.
Absolutely, an uphill battle with that. So
excellent. So what's up next for Wendy Samford?
I don't know. I'm gonna rest. I'm trying to do all this stuff at home, and my granddaughter said, you have too much time on your hands. She just told me that the other day. I was like, oh, maybe I should think of some writing again. That's hilarious.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I tend to try to save the world when I don't have a project going on. So I guess I'll have to think of the next thing. I did think about going into jails and interviewing people that it's a very, very high percentage of people, especially male population, in jails that grew up in foster care. And I thought about just seeing what some of their stories are. I don't know any people, mind you, so that would be one of those things I'll have to be led if that's where I'm supposed to go. Then I guess I'll be in jails.
You're inspired for that one. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think they deserve to have their story told.
So where can we get your books? Aside from
Amazon, I have a website. It's www.wsamford.com.
Wsamford.com. Awesome.
Yeah, it's SAM, like a guy's name, and then a car, FORD.
Sam and the Ford.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get on there or on Amazon, either one. So
awesome. All right, Wendy. Well, it's been awesome talking to you.
Hey, so nice to talk to you.
Yeah, this is great. Hopefully we'll see you in October at our conference, or we'll
I'll
see
be
you
there.
around. Awesome. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. Please check out Wendy's books on wsamford.com or on our on the Expo page. Excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Nice talking to you.
Yep. Bye.